The murderer must have expended a lot of effort to cut them off, as these are the hardest bones in the human body. Hello everyone, I'm Min. Welcome to my channel. In the last video, we talked about the locations and how the bodies were dumped or managed. Today's video just so happens to contain the following keywords: a suitcase, remote island, scattered silicone fillers, and, well, a dead girl. We will tell this story backwards, starting from the end and going to the beginning. Dezhou Island, or Deer Island as the locals call it, is located at the mouth of Shantou Port. No one lives on the island except for a few days working for the maritime. Early morning on the 30th of June 2013, something weird floating at sea caught the attention of Lao Huang, one of the maritime staff. Floating suitcases were usually trash, but this one was welded to an iron frame made of water pipes. Lao Huang chuckled. Could this be the treasure he had been dreamed of since reading fictions as a kid? His childhood fantasy was finally coming true? Is it? Lao Huang plunged into the scorching sea and swam to the suitcase. He squeezed his hands through the cracks and felt something soft and squishy inside. Damn, this better not be some ancient curse, he thought. There were round bulges in there too. Holy cow, are those pictures?
If you are a fan of juicy content, then don't pitch out on this video. Like and subscribe to stay up to date with all the latest on your favorite food. And my channel too, of course.
Are those made of human flesh? Lao Huang gasped, eyes and mouth wide open in shock. He gulped so loudly he nearly choked. Lao Huang, scared out of his wits, rushed to report to the local police station as soon as he got ashore. The police quickly arrived at the scene and fished the suitcase out of the water. When it was in the water, Lao Huang couldn't smell anything. But as soon as it surfaced, a stench rushed into everyone's noses. Strangely, the suitcase was not only welded to an iron frame, but also locked with 2 padlocks and wrapped in iron chains. To get to the bottom of this, the bold and skillful detectives cut the iron chains, dragged the suitcase out, and opened it. They would have better off not looking. A female corpse was inside. Didn't Lao Huang guess it? But he didn't say a word. Well, a detective didn't even put on a mask and went straight to examine the body. Since it was a summer and the suitcase had been soaked in water for quite a long time, the flesh had completely rotted. The dismembered body parts were teeming with maggots. Just imagine the trauma the detectives at the time. According to the preliminary autopsy, the deceased was a female in her early 20s. The corpse was divided in 3 parts: torso including both arms, left thigh, and a left calf. After they had spliced them and conducted DNA tests, those parts belonged to the same person, who was about 5'2" or 5'5" when she was alive. The corpse was highly decayed, partially skeletonized, and the time of death was about 1 month before it was discovered. That means it had been soaked in water for at least 20 days. From the status of the stomach and what was inside of it, well, it could determine that she was not died of common poisons. And from the way the murderer dismembered the body, they could tell the perpetrator was not a veteran, at least when it comes to dismemberment, since it was done too clumsy. Due to lack of understanding of human structure, the cuts were not at joints, but to those muscle-rich and fat-rich areas, and the root of the right thigh and the femur of the corpse were chopped off forcibly. The murderer must have expended a lot of effort to cut them off, as these are the hardest bones in the human body. According to the missing skin and tissues of the corpse, the forensics speculated that the weapon used to cut the skin and muscles was light-weighted and sharp, while the weapon used to chop the bones should have been a heavy cleaver. It is obvious that the perpetrator used two different types of weapons to manage the dismemberment. They could also tell that the victim was dismembered immediately after death. Because the forensics did not find obvious postmortem hypostasis on the corpse, which usually appeared as bruise-like discolorations and commonly found in corpses with severe blood loss or drowning. That being said was that it's highly likely the victim's body was dismembered right after she was dead, leaving no time for the blood to settle within the vessel to cause livor mortis, the discoloration that we had talked about. And to be able to dismember shortly after the death, the murderer must have prepared ahead. This case was apparently planned. There were no conspicuous injuries on the corpse. However, upon closer examination, the forensics discovered a faint pale area on the chest that was barely noticeable. Given the deceased's naturally fair complexion and blood loss, this pale patch was even harder to spot. After repeated swabbing with alcohol, the area became increasingly pronounced. This is because when a human was alive, blood would flow throughout the entire body. So if an area of soft tissue is subjected to the intense pressure, blood is prevented from reaching the capillary, causing ischemia in the compressed region. If death occurs while under sustained compression, blood circulation ceases entirely. Even upon release of pressure, blood does not reperfuse the area anymore. The pale mark on the chest was likely caused by pressure applied to the chest around the time of death. What could the murderer's motive be? Rape? Strangulation? Or something else? Usually in murder cases where the victim was asphyxiated mechanically, the head will show clear signs of oxygen deprivation, indicating the cause of death. However, the head was severed from this body. The forensics initially determined that the victim was immobilized as the murderer exerted significant pressure on the chest, blocking the ability to breathe and causing death by asphyxiation. At the same time, they found a strange tattoo on the corpse like a black cat. More importantly, the forensics also found a pair of silicone implants, means the deceased should have had breast augmentation surgery before. Based on the above information, the police had a preliminary portrait of the deceased. Red nail polish, tattoos, breast augmentations. This was a young and fashionable woman who loved beauty. The police began to check all the missing persons in Shantou, hoping to find the identity of the deceased from them. But the results were not ideal. But after they had searched all over Shantou, they just could not find any missing persons matching the characteristics of the deceased. For a time, the police seemed to be at an impasse, unable to determine who she was. And if the luggage floated over from the outer port, the search range would increase exponentially, extending to several cities and other provinces. The manpower and resources required for this level of investigation would be enormous. Just as the police were conducting field investigations, the Trace Evidence Department brought good news. They found a code on that silicone fillers. The police then came to a plastic surgery hospital in Shantou and bringing these silicone pads with them. According to professionals, the silicone pads originated from the UK. This Naga brand is a high-end product at the time. Furthermore, the only domestic distributor of this particular brand was located in Wuhan. According to the distributor, only 15 pairs of these silicone fillers had been sold in total at that time, and each pair had a unique number and corresponding contact information of the user. This information narrowed down the searching scope severely, so the investigators only needed to check out those 15 owners of the silicone pads. Sure enough, a customer named Cici could not be contacted for after-sales services, and this customer had plastic surgery at the clinic in Zhuhai City, which is about 296 miles away from Shantou City. The police immediately noticed this customer named Cici, since she's the only one who'd not been responsive and lived quite near to Shantou compared to the rest of the other owners. And when they checked, the corresponding number of Silicon Pass matched perfectly with that of the deceased. The police promptly contacted the emergency contact number left by the deceased or by the customer at the hospital. They learned that Cici, age 22, was a model from Beiliu City, Guangxi Province. The photos provided by the deceased sister showed that she also had a cat tattoo on her left thigh, just like the deceased. She had lost contact since the 10th of June 2013. Soon, blood samples were collected from the deceased family members. DNA comparison confirmed that the deceased woman was indeed Cici, who had gone missing 20 days earlier. However, the murderer was still at large. Who on earth would do this to such a beauty and even go so far as to dismember the corpse and throw it into the sea? As usual, we shall start with people who were very close to her and had conflicts with her, such as partners, spouse, or family members. The police found Cici's close friend Xiaobai. Xiaobai revealed that Cici had been living in Zhuhai with her boyfriend. Her boyfriend was a wealthy Hong Kong businessman, but suddenly on the 6th of June 2013, Cici came to Shenzhen and said she wanted to stay with Xiaobai, as her boyfriend was going on a business trip. However, Cici disappeared after the 8th of June. The police immediately obtained Cici's call records and found that her last call was with a photographer. The police suspected the photographer since he was the last contact, she made. The investigators found and contacted this photographer, but according to him, he had an appointment with Cici at 3 p.m. that day for a photo shoot. But Cici never arrived or answered her phone. So the photographer called Xiaobai, Cici's friend, to ask why Cici was not shown up as scheduled. The photographer's assistant and Cici's friend Xiaobai also confirmed his statement. The photographer indeed had no time to commit the crime. The case stopped again. Cici called the photographer at 2:44 p.m. that day. Within just over 40 minutes, Cici was murdered. And within that 40 minutes, the luggage that contained her body had drifted from Zhuhai for over 400 kilometers to a remote desert island off Shantou. That's highly likely impossible. Xiaobai, Cici's close friend, revealed some gossip to the police. About a month ago, Cici really hit it off with a man with the screen name L online. Cici was secretly seeing L behind her boyfriend's back, and she once confided in Xiaobai that L had given her 50,000 yuan. Huh? Why would this old guy give Cici that amount of money? Was it under coercion? Was it voluntary? Was this love triangle related to this case? Was there a crime of passion? The police were excited to investigate this, as it seemed rather dramatic. However, the investigation disappointed the police, and they did not even have the chance to take either of the men for interrogation. The reason was that L had gone abroad with his family around the 8th of June. The immigration records also showed that Cici's boyfriend, the wealthy Hong Kong businessman, had indeed gone on a business trip, as Cici said. Neither of them had the time to commit the crime, so they were ruled out. The investigation returned to square one, unable to make breakthroughs in the case based on the existing romantic leads. The police had no choice but to widen their scope by turning to investigate Cici's financial situation. She had 7 saving accounts. 6 of them were invalid with little or no money left. But with one particular account, There were multiple transactions on the 22nd of June, 26th of June, and the 2nd of July. How could money have been withdrawn when she was already died? Or did someone fortuitously obtain the card and improbably deduce the password? The police rushed to the bank where the ATM in question was located to obtain the CCTV footage. The CCTV revealed that on the 22nd of June 2013, a man in raincoat and black-rimmed glasses helped himself to 20,000 yuan from the ATM. On the 26th of June, a bandage-hat man in t-shirt and shorts generously withdrew another 20,000 yuan. On the 2nd of July, a white t-shirted man in black baseball cap kindly relieved the ATM of the last 20,000 yuan. The police glued their eyes to the videos and concluded decisively that the three men were one and the same. They all donned the same pair of black-rimmed glasses, mouth and nose. Most remarkably, nature had endowed each of them with precisely 2 eyes. Anyone with half a brain could tell that they were the same guy. Especially on the 2nd of July, the man paraded his theatrical mannerisms, grunting away contentedly like a hawk. Clearly, he meant to mock the investigators' intelligence. Infuriated, the investigators declared that this joker must be the fiend who killed Cici. Time for the advanced memory recovery technique that ought to coax the truth out of him. Fortunately, Cici's good friend Xiaobai spoke up again. She said Cici had a Samsung phone and an Apple phone that disappeared with her. The police swiftly located one of the phones with transaction records at the second-hand phone market in Shenzhen. Do you know this big data thing in China? That is information retrieval through the abuse of big data. Under the unscrupulous exploitation of big data, they naturally found the man who did the transaction. He was Huang Sheng, who turned out to be a local of Shantou. And the suitcase was found in Shantou as well. So was this Huang Sheng related to the case? Quickly, the police interrogated Huang Sheng. Cici disappeared on the 8th of June, and the 2 phones ended up in Huang Sheng's stall on the 9th of June. Huang Sheng said a man sold both phones to him. Who? Huang Shan. So, was he just playing tongue twisters with the police? Huang Sheng and Huang Shan. After seeing Huang Shan's photo, substantial evidence proved that Huang Shan, not Huang Sheng, was indeed the culprit. On the 7th of July 2013, Huang Shan was arrested in Shantou. He willingly confessed everything. He said that ever since he committed the crime until he was arrested, the sword of Damocles, extreme remorse, guilt, and the dread of being found out had been hanging over his head, tormenting his soul. Now that the police had caught him, the real perpetrator who deserved punishment, he made no attempt to hide anything. He said he felt greatly relieved for the heavy moral burden weighing on his conscience, and the doom of Damocles that had haunted him day and night had finally been lifted. Much to everyone's surprise, Huang Shan did not know Cici at all. This meant that the police had been mistaken all along and assuming that the crime was committed by someone familiar. Through interrogation, the truth of the case was gradually revealed. Huang Shan, from Shantou, dropped out of school in his teens and drove an unlicensed taxi in Shenzhen to make a living. Although life was mundane, he was very content. However, after becoming obsessed with gambling, his life was rewritten. As time went by, he was burdened with heavy debts from gambling and had no way out. As a last resort, he came up with the idea of robbery. His gambling buddies were the first targets. He carefully planned for this, planning in his mind that he must kill to destroy evidence after the robbery. He even rented a remote house, waiting for the right opportunity to strike. On the afternoon of the 8th of June 2013, Huang Shan was soliciting customers when the fashionably dressed Cici waved and stopped his car. Cici was in a hurry for the photo shoot appointment. Little did Cici know that her life would come to an end the moment he got into that unlicensed taxi. Looking in the rear view mirror, Huang Shan saw that Cici's clothes were stylish and she was carrying 2 mobile phones, looking wealthy. He decided to change his plans from premeditated murder to a random murder. When the car reached a desolate stretch of road outside of the city, Huang Shan revealed his fiendish side, holding a dagger against Cici and threatening her to hand over money and deceived her into giving her passwords for her bank accounts before killing her. After obtaining what he wanted, Huang Shan took Cici to the rental house he had prepared in advance. He then cruelly killed her at around 5 p.m. that day. To cover up his crime as he had prepared in advance, Huang Shan took out a chopper and an axe, dismembered Cici's body, and put the pieces in a suitcase. Under the cover of night, knowing the local terrain and that the farther he threw the suitcase, the harder it would be found, Huang Shan drove over 400 kilometers to the upper reaches of the Rongjiang River in Shantou. There, seeing no one was around, he threw the suitcase into the water. However, what Huang Shan didn't expect was that, despite having installed iron frames and heavy iron chains and padlocks, the suitcase containing the corpse still floated up 22 days later when it drifted from Rongjiang River to the estuary. As the corpse had decayed and expanded, this led to the exposure of Huang Shan's crime. It was such a pity that Cici, who should have had a bright future, ended up with her head nowhere to be found. On the 19th of July 2013, Huang Shan was transferred to the prosecutors for deliberately murdering Cici and later sentenced to death. Well, this case ends here. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.